Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Komad. Remember me? I'm Zane. I was your AI host in 2024. It is truly a pleasure to be here again with all of you. For the past few years, Komad had received many amazing responses and became a great success thanks to the enthusiastic participation and support from you, our dedicated audience. This year, we are very excited to bring something even more meaningful and enriching. Our sessions will now feature two main segments. The first segment, called Resensi Buku, will focus on book reviews, where lecturers and students explore and share their insights, ideas, and perspectives from a book they read, which can inspire both personal and professional growth. The second segment is our main program, which will be our Komad sessions, consisting of webinars and discussions on various topics related to education, providing opportunities to exchange knowledge, experiences, and current educational practices. Whether you are here to discover new ideas, broaden your understanding, or simply be part of an engaging learning community, we hope Komad continues to benefit and inspire all of us. Thank you and enjoy the program.
Hello, welcome to Komad 2026. I'm Norella. I am your AI host for today. I would like to go over a few things as a reminder to all audience on the etiquette of attending this webinar. First, everyone who attends to this webinar series will be given an e-certificate after each session. Therefore, do not forget to register your full name once the link for registration is open. Make sure it is typed correctly and your email address is accurate too. Only for teachers or education officers in Malaysia, please make sure you also provide your IC number. You will find the registration link is pinned in the live chat box of this YouTube channel. Second, be respectful of others. When communicating, please be polite. Foul language will not be tolerated, and audience who are rude will be taken off the webinar. And third, we'd appreciate it if you could share today's webinar with others through your social networks. Thank you for taking time to listen to this reminder announcement. See you again soon. Terima kasih.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera dan salam perpaduan. Hari ini saya ingin berkongsi satu resensi buku yang sangat relevan dengan keperluan semasa, iaitu buku bertajuk Leading Digital Turning Technology into Business Transformation yang ditulis oleh George Didier Andrew daripada MIT Sloan School of Management. Buku ini diterbitkan pada tahun 2014 dan menjadi rujukan penting dalam bidang transformasi digital organisasi. Dan buku setebal 300 halaman ini juga membincangkan bagaimana organisasi di seluruh dunia berjaya melaksanakan transformasi digital. Bukan sekadar teknologi, tetapi melalui gabungan strategi dan kepimpinan yang berkesan. Apakah yang menarik tentang buku ini? Salah satu idea yang paling penting dalam buku ini ialah penegasan penulisan terhadap penyataan. Digital transformation is not about technology, it is about strategy and leadership. Petikan ini membawa maksud bagaimana pemimpin mengurus perubahan dalam organisasi. Jika kita tanya pada hari ini, adakah organisasi gagal dalam transformasi digital kerana teknologi atau kerana manusia yang menguruskannya? Dalam buku ini memberi satu jawapan yang sangat jelas, menunjukkan bahawa masalah utama kegagalan ini bukan kerana teknologi, tetapi disebabkan kepimpinan dan cara kita berfikir tentang transformasi itu sendiri. Buku ini sangat relevan kerana ia mengandungi 400 kajian yang dikaji oleh penulis berkaitan dengan organisasi global. Namun, yang lebih menarik, buku ini didapati satu perkara yang konsisten berdasarkan kepada kajian yang ditulis. Banyak organisasi melabur dalam teknologi tetapi gagal memberi impak sebenar. Kenapa? Kerana mereka melihat digital sebagai alat, bukan sebagai strategi transformasi digital. Realitinya hari ini semua sektor telah mengalami transformasi akibat perkembangan teknologi digital. Mereka telah berubah daripada platform tradisional kepada platform digital yang dipacu oleh data dan juga algoritma. Persoalannya, adakah sektor pendidikan turut bergerak bersama pada kadar yang sama? Hakikatnya, pendidikan turut berada dalam satu tekanan perubahan yang besar berdasarkan kepada pelajar yang hidup dalam dunia pada hari ini yang penuh dengan teknologi di mana maklumat boleh diakses dengan mudah melalui internet dan mereka juga menjadi pengguna tegar terhadap kecerdasan buatan. AI bukan sahaja mampu memberi maklumat, malah mampu menganalisis, menulis dan memberi cadangan. Ini menunjukkan bahawa fungsi pendidikan tidak lagi tertumpu kepada penyampaian maklumat semata-mata. Dalam konteks ini, keperluan untuk menerima teknologi dalam pendidikan bukan lagi satu pilihan tetapi satu keperluan strategik. Berdasarkan perspektif buku ini, penggunaan teknologi sahaja tidak mencukupi dan apa yang penting ialah bagaimana teknologi tersebut dipimpin. Di sinilah aspek leadership dalam kepimpinan menjadi sangat kritikal kerana transformasi digital memerlukan pemimpin pendidikan yang mempunyai visi, berani melakukan perubahan dan mampu membina budaya inovasi. Seperti perniagaan, pendidikan juga menekankan tanpa kepimpinan yang jelas, teknologi hanya akan menjadi alat yang disukarkan, bukan sebagai pemangkit perubahan. Buku ini juga menekankan kejayaan organisasi berasaskan kepada dua komponen utama dalam transformasi, iaitu digital capability dan leadership capability. Jika dikaitkan dengan pendidikan, digital capability ini merujuk kepada keupayaan organisasi dalam memahami kumpulan sasarannya, menambah baik operasi dan mencipta model pengajaran dan pembelajaran yang baru, termasuklah menggunakan data analisis untuk penambahbaikan proses pentadbiran. Manakala leadership capability merujuk kepada keupayaan pemimpin untuk membimbing kumpulan sasaran menghadapi perubahan ini. Menurut buku ini, organisasi akan gagal jika hanya kuat teknologi tetapi lemah kepimpinan atau gagal menggerakkan transformasi secara menyeluruh. Buku ini menjelaskan bahawa transformasi digital berlaku pada 3 ruang utama. Yang pertama, customer experience, yang mana organisasi perlu faham tingkah laku pengguna yang semakin digital. Operation process melibatkan otomasi, data analitik dan kecekapan operasi serta business model. Ini paling kritikal kerana menunjukkan bagaimana organisasi boleh menjana nilai dalam era digital. Maksudnya, transformasi bukan hanya sekadar upgrade sistem tetapi rethink keseluruhannya supaya keseluruhannya cara organisasi beroperasi. Apa yang saya rasa paling kuat dalam buku ini ialah penekanan terhadap leadership dan governance kerana transformasi digital gagal bukan disebabkan tiada AI atau tiada sistem canggih tetapi sebab tiada arah yang jelas, kerja berkadar dan perubahan tidak diurus dengan baik. Dengan kata lain, technology can be brought but transformation must be led. Sebagai kesimpulannya, buku digital ini memberikan satu pengajaran yang sangat penting kepada kita, iaitu transformasi tidak berlaku kerana teknologi tetapi kerana kepimpinan yang mampu mengurus perubahan. Dalam konteks pendidikan, kita tidak hanya sekadar memperkenalkan teknologi dalam bilik darjah, sebaliknya kita perlu membina sistem pendidikan yang dipimpin oleh pemimpin yang relevan, yang mampu mengintegrasikan teknologi dengan strategi dan nilai pendidikan. Kerana pada akhirnya, digital transformation bukan tentang menjadi lebih digital, bukan tentang gadget, tetapi untuk menjadi lebih relevan juga tentang cara kita membina pemikiran. Sekian, terima kasih.
Selamat datang and good day and welcome to the International Domestic Virtual Colloquium or Komad 2026, organised by the Institute of Teacher Education, International Languages Campus, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Now, I'm Logeswari Subramaniam and I will be the moderator for today's colloquium series entitled The Truth About Classroom Ready Teachers and Why It's Not So Simple. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on our live IPG KBA YouTube channel for Komad 2026. The theme for this year's colloquium is Building Characters Through Language Teachers. Now, similar to the previous year's installments, the goal of this colloquium is to provide the space for educators from all over the world to discuss, share and exchange views with fellow educators on topics related to education and how they are transforming globally. How they are transforming globally is indeed very important to all of us. Through this colloquium, there is plenty to learn, hence expanding our knowledge to a different level. Now, allow me to introduce our esteemed speaker for today's webinar series on the truth about classroom-ready teachers and why it's not so simple. Please welcome Mr. Gary Hustler. Mr. Gary Hustler is currently the Chief Education Development Officer at Leap Services, a high-impact social enterprise dedicated to transforming education across Malaysia and Southeast Asia. In his current role, he leads strategic initiatives that focuses on designing impactful programs, building meaningful partnership, and implementing large-scale education projects aiming at improving learning outcomes. Now, prior to this, he served as the head of Leap Academic, where he played a key role in connecting organizations with education initiatives aligned with ESG and CSR goals. He also led teams in developing innovative programs, strengthening organizational capacity, and driving strategic growth within the education sector. Now, Mr. Gary also brings extensive experiences from higher education and corporate training, including his time at INTI International University, where he contributed to enhancing teaching practices and professional development. He holds a master's in applied linguistics, and his expertise includes instructional design, leadership coaching, and educational transformation. Now, let us start. Yes, Gary. Let's start with something which is very fundamental. The term classroom-ready teacher sounds very clear, but in your experience, is a teacher ever ready?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for the introduction, Logiz, and thank you for inviting me here to share my thoughts on this topic. So your question, is a teacher truly ever ready? I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Especially when we're thinking about initial teacher training as well. My simple answer to that is no, a teacher never is fully ready, because teaching is more than just learning about how to use different pedagogies or teach different content. It's, in my opinion, more of like a bit of an art form as well, which you only build your intuition over the course of a career. So what do I mean by that? I mean, when you enter into a classroom and you've got 30 different children, the next 30 different children will be completely different, have different needs, and so that develops with experience over time. So I think this, like, to reduce it, think of readiness in terms of a continuum. So you've got like teachers who have the basic skills and competencies and the pedagogies, like they know how to plan a lesson, they know how to do simple classroom management. But then on the other end of the continuum, you've got teachers who are able to focus on things like the learning that's happening in the classroom rather than just the teaching. So their natural question every lesson is, what did my children learn in this lesson? And how do I know that they learnt it? And also, what are their intuitions about the children's level of proficiency in English, for example?
Right.
So yeah, it's basically a continuum, I think.
Right, okay. So that's really interesting way to frame it. Seeing readiness as a continuum rather than a final destination. So I think there's really a lot of challenges on how we traditionally view teacher preparation. Right, let's dive in more. You've mentioned about the difference between teaching and learning. Now, why do you think there's often a gap between what teacher delivers and what students actually learn?
I mean, that one, I could simplify it as well, I think, but it's quite a complicated question. I think why that happens, first and foremost, is because teachers, especially new teachers, they feel like they need a crutch or support. So that comes from the textbook. So I open the book on page 54, I go through all of my lesson on page 54, and then I try and make it interesting for the students and the children as well. And by the time the lesson finishes, I close the book and I go back to the teacher staff room, and that's that done. So I've focused on teaching or delivering the curriculum. But in that situation, a more experienced teacher will focus on what did the children learn in that lesson.
Right.
So I think the textbook and the schemes of work and the SKPs that are given to the teachers, let's think about English primary, for example. If you look at any of those schemes of work, they're so detailed. They're like ready-made lesson plans. I don't have to think if I'm a teacher, honestly. I can just go and deliver that lesson. But because that's all there, that makes it easier for me to not focus on the learning that's happening.
Right.
I can teach that lesson, but we all know that there are 50%, I don't know, this is just a made up statistic, but 50% or approximately kids in a year 4 English classroom who can't speak English, and some of them can't even read as well.
Yeah.
So how can they access the curriculum? And what do I do to make sure that I'm not just delivering page 53, page 54 and that lesson as it is? And the way I have to do that is by focusing on what the children are learning. Things like clear learning objectives, success criteria, and then asking myself, how do I know did all of these children meet those objectives? And then at the end of the lesson, if they didn't, what do I do next lesson to ensure that they met it? And so that becomes a much more skilled thing to do. And I think that comes with experience, actually.
Right. I think, Gary, what you are relating to is what's really happening in reality. So teaching doesn't really guarantee learning, I assume. Yeah. So that's something that I think we might be overlooking, and it should be something that must be concerning many of us. Right. Now, in many classrooms, teachers rely heavily on textbooks and scheme of works. All right. Now, from your perspective, how does this affect teacher creativity and responsiveness? Do you think this limits teachers from really addressing what students actually need?
Okay, yeah, that's a really good question. So, building on my point from just now, teachers tend to, like, if you're given the exact recipe to follow when you're an initial teacher, which is the scheme of work, lesson plan, and the textbook, and you don't have to do as much thinking for yourself, you're way more likely to do the easy path, the path of least resistance, which is the pre-planned, packaged teaching part, rather than wanting to use your own ideas or your own creativity or go away from the textbook. And that is also kind of reinforced by a lot of school culture. So, for example, I went into a school recently, I won't name the school, and I asked the teachers, what do they do when the children can't read in their class? And this was, I think, a year 5 English class. And they said, well, there's not much we can do because we have to finish the curriculum.
Right.
Okay. And as you know, that's not response to the actual needs of the class. That's not actually learning happening in that class. That's just focusing on the teaching aspect.
That's the usual answers that we get. Yeah.
We can point our fingers to PPD or to JPN. I've been told to do this. I've been told to do that. But honestly, I think it's the answer is a lot simpler than that. I think it's that's just the way we do it around here. It's more of a cultural thing, the school culture. So a thinking, curiosity-driven teacher who responds to the children in their class and focuses on the learning wouldn't react like that. They wouldn't answer the question with why the kids, the textbook drives the curriculum and the pacing of the curriculum. So that you asked me another part as well. Does it affect teacher creativity?
Yeah.
I think initial teachers, who when they first come into the schools, they're full of ideas.
Yeah.
They've got loads of ideas, loads of activities, and they want to try it out, and that's great. Real strong enthusiasm. But then I believe that after 100 lessons of doing, trying to reinvent the wheel, they're more likely to figure out, it's already done for me in the scheme of work and the lesson plan. So in the long run, I think these do affect creativity. And you will see that most English classrooms of lesson 53 in the scheme of work around the country will look very similar.
So you're suggesting that they should just gear on their creativity and not so follow rigidly in the scheme of work?
Yeah, I mean, I think English is probably one of the only subjects where you have such detailed scheme of work.
Right.
So it was a great intention, a great idea to try and give the teachers they need to be able to deliver the curriculum. But when you focus on delivering the curriculum, you don't focus on learning. You focus on delivery and finishing something rather than what's actually happening in the class. And you can't be responsive when you've got a prescribed curriculum to deliver. You look at BM, for example, or maths in the schemes of work that they have for primary, they're not detailed like that. Right. I think when they're not detailed like that, the teachers have to respond with a bit more creativity.
Okay.
So yeah, that's just my opinion.
Right, so that really highlights the tension between the structure and the flexibility in teaching. So it's something that many educators maybe can relate to. Right, let's move on. You spoke about knowing your learners, right? So in practical terms, what does it actually look like in real classroom? Now, for a new teacher, what's one simple thing that they can start doing immediately?
So what I mean about knowing your learners is the reality, I think I mentioned it before, is let's say you're in a medium or to large primary school in Klang Valley. You've got 150 students coming through your class every single day, different levels, different year groups. I've been in schools before when it's been 4 years into the academic term and those teachers still don't know the student's name. And this is not like this happens all the time. Right. This is not just a one-off, right? And that's simply because I don't know 150 kids' names. That's hard to do. So I would recommend, if you're in that situation, the first thing you should focus on is learning those kids' names. Kids want to hear their name. All humans want to hear their name. It's a sign of respect and I see you. And so if the teacher doesn't know the kid's name, that doesn't create a safe learning environment, which means that the kids can hide in the back of the class and they're not going to be able to access the curriculum and they'll get further and further behind. So I think the number one thing that I would recommend all teachers do is make sure you know the students' names, but also learn a bit about them. Do activities at the beginning of the academic year that get them to tell you or write about their family, their hobbies, their interests, and spend time really, really knowing who they are as individuals. That's the foundation, that's the absolute bare minimum to create a safe, positive learning environment. From there you can begin to understand their learning profile. So, for example, one project I've been working on is a literacy project where we gave teachers diagnostic tools to understand the children's literacy profile. And when they know this child can do phonics, this child doesn't know the letters of the alphabet, this child struggles with reading out loud, when you know all that, you can you can be responsive in your planning and your teaching, and therefore giving the children what they actually need in the class rather than what the curriculum dictates.
All right, okay, I think that's a little bit of a practical idea. So you're suggesting creating a bond is one of the most important thing to start off with. All
That's
right. Okay. So Malaysia, as you know, has such diverse classroom settings. So do you think a one-size-fits-all approach to teacher training is still relevant? What should we be doing differently instead? Yes, Gary.
Honestly, I think it is appropriate because it depends really on what we are talking about diversity. So if we're differentiating special education needs to mainstream teaching, yes, then I think that demands different approaches and different inputs for initial teacher training. But if we're talking about rural versus urban, or large versus small, or vernacular versus like what all of the other different schools we have, then I think good teaching is good teaching regardless of where it happens.
Right.
And I don't think that those teachers need extra different skills. Like if you're teaching in a large school in KL, yeah, it's going to be different to teaching in a small school in Bachok, for example. But actually, good teaching is still the same regardless of where it is. You'll probably have different technologies. You know, you might have, if you're lucky, you might have high-tech stuff in KL, maybe not so in Bachok, but still, you make do with what you've got.
Right.
Think about the American missionaries who go to Africa and teach in those schools with blackboards only. They don't have, the kids don't have textbooks and stuff. They don't have anything really, but learning can still happen. I mean, we're humans. We're built to learn. So it doesn't actually matter what your real context is. A good teacher will adapt to what they have at that time to make sure learning happens.
Okay, that sounds logic because a good teacher would make do and adapt to whatever materials that they have in their particular location, right? Okay, now let's move on to the next particular question. In your view, how important is teacher mindset? Do you see teaching more as a profession or just a job in today's context? And I'm going to add one more question to it. How does this mindset impact classroom practices?
Okay, so yeah, teacher mindset is crucial. Like when we've been running our projects in schools, we've run like the Trust Schools program, and also more recently program Anak Kita in schools in Selangor. One of the things that we always want to capture is a sense of the teacher efficacy. So teacher efficacy simply means how do you feel about teaching?
Right.
Do you feel positively about teaching? And you can learn a lot about, you can correlate strongly a teacher's sense of self-efficacy with student outcomes. If a teacher feels strongly and positively towards their profession or their job, that is definitely going to impact student outcomes and their learning. So teacher mindset is crucial. If a teacher does not have the right attitude or feelings towards their job, then that is definitely going to impact what happens in the classroom. Simple examples that we can use are even for kids, right? The concept of growth mindset or fixed mindset, I think it's quite popular and quite well known now. If we can get students to think, I can't do that yet, with a growth mindset, rather than I can't do that, full stop, with a fixed mindset. And that's the same with teachers. If teachers approach it with the scenarios we're going to then, if they're in a rural school with no technology, no materials, if they say, I can't teach in this situation, then they're not going to be able to. But if they say, I can't teach in this situation with the things I've got, how do I make it happen?
Yeah.
And then they start thinking of solutions. So yeah, I think it's crucial for teachers to have the right mindset towards their profession. I do see it as a profession personally, but I don't know if it is actually seen as a profession in Malaysia. So you look at successful education systems around the world. Teaching is, you need to have a master's degree and you need to be in the top third of your graduating class to become a teacher, and you get paid the same as a doctor. But that's not the case in Malaysia. So, I think also there's not really a national teaching professional body. in Malaysia. Am I right?
You have some bodies. That
But are they like
represent.
professional? You know, like the accountancy body and the lawyer's body? I think
not
quite there.
Not quite so.
So I think, you know, that would be a massive thing to have in Malaysia if teachers can have a higher status naturally through the positioning of their job in society. In Japan, it's a very well respected profession. In Finland is as well. England, not so much, honestly, where I'm from. It's kind of mid, kind of same as Malaysia. But I think, yeah, teachers need to be proud of what they're doing.
But I think we get the same perception in Finland, in Korea, in Singapore as well.
Yeah, exactly.
We are not quite so there yet.
Yeah,
but we're building on it, I guess.
I think that should definitely be the destination because at the end of the day, teachers are the ones who are building the future of this country, of this nation.
Right.
You know, the kids that are coming through those classrooms, they're not just learning the curriculum and the content from their teachers. They're learning how the teacher's mindset, how the teacher is perceived in society. They're learning about all different kinds of things about the society that they're coming into. So it's more than just the content. Yeah. So I think it's high valued job, and it should be. I think we should do all we can to make it a profession.
Right. So it's just not merely teaching per se, but it's something that comes out from our heart to do it in the most effective way so that we get the students to learn optimally, right? Let's move on to the next question. Do you think currently performance and appraisal systems actually reward good teaching or just compliances? So what would you change if you had an opportunity?
Yeah, and this is a good question as well. And I don't want to sound too negative on the way the system currently is. It's just one thing that we did in trust schools, in the trust school program.
You mean the Amanah?
Sekolah
Sekolah
Amanah.
Amanah.
Yep. So we recognized that traditional appraisal systems, they favor seniority over like merit. So the older you are, the more likely you're going to get promoted. In fact, it's actually, you can't get a promotion in your first 7 years of teaching, is it?
Yeah.
So that's something that we changed in trust schools. What we did was we first identified who are the influential people in the school and who are the positive influences in the school. Because you can have negative influences and positive influences as well. So we identified the positive influences regardless of how long they'd been a teacher, regardless of their dedication, like their seniority, not regardless of their dedication. We wanted dedicated teachers. But then we promoted them to become a middle leader and gave them the sense of leadership that they actually needed and deserved in their school. And these teachers, the middle leaders, these were the ones who changed the culture from within the school. And they're the ones who came up with the new ideas and the creativity. They're the ones who influenced the rest of the school to take the new ideas that we were bringing and make them happen in the school.
Okay. But I think you don't really get the similar situation in every schools. It depends also on the location of the school. So you get some newcomers who are holding some leadership positions. But those are very rare cases.
I'll give you another example as well. So the appraisal system currently, when we worked with the Sekolah Amanah as well, when we first did our lesson observations going in using SKPMG2, we would do a real lesson observation and the scores would be like 40-50% on average, whereas the previously reported scores going to PPD were 90% for all the teachers. So sudah mantap. So everyone sudah mantap. But the reality was very different. So you ask yourself, why was that happening? And the PPD data that they're getting is all of these teachers are amazing. They're all 80-90%.
Oh yes.
But when you go to the school, when you do the observation yourself, you can see that's not the reality. So that is an example of, you know, misaligned incentives, you could say. The Guru Besar wants to show that the school has all of these great teachers. The teachers, if they get a low mark on the lesson observations, it affects their bonuses, it affects their pay rises, and nobody wants to upset the apple cart.
I understand.
So you know the reality of it,
Yeah.
because you were working in PPD before.
So it's merely compliance against, good reward over good teaching. Right. So that's quite thought-provoking, and I think many educators can resonate with that perspective. Okay, now how important is the role of school leaders, since we spoke a little bit about leadership, like the principal and guru basars, in shaping good quality teaching? Can a leadership make or break teaching a good teaching culture? Yes, Gary.
Yeah. So from building on the idea from the Scholar Amana, from the Middle Leader Programme, when we've just finished this Selangor-wide literacy and numeracy programme under Programme Anak Kita, so we had 250 schools, there were 1,200 teachers, over 10,000 students who we were helping with their foundational literacy and numeracy. One thing that we wanted to, again, measure was the impact of the school leadership on the student outcomes.
Okay.
So we found a strong correlation between schools that had a supportive middle leadership, basically the panel heads, and student outcomes. Schools with, so the way we did it was we asked the teachers in the school do a bunch of questions about their middle leadership, and then we triangulated that with the student outcomes. And we found out, without doubt, a strong correlation that the schools that had supportive panel heads all had bigger student outcomes than those that didn't. So there is a direct correlation. We found that in Scholar Amana as well. So definitely the culture from the leadership has an impact on the student outcomes and the teaching quality and the teaching culture in schools. We found this time and again. And going back again to the Guru Besar as well, and the culture that they can bring into the school through things like compliance, by making sure if Guru Besars made a stand, and wanted to focus on the instructional quality within their schools at the cost of the PPD perception of their school for the short term, thinking long term, that would be amazing. But you don't see that often happen.
Correct.
You see that what happens is as people get promoted through the system, they start off as really good teachers and then they become really good administrators. But they're not anymore focusing on the quality of education, they're focusing on the quality of administration.
Right.
And so we want to shift that. Like, we always try and get our leaders to focus on being a visible leader and focusing on the instructional. What does that look like for Guru Besar? It means going into the classrooms. It means giving teachers feedback. It means doing demonstration lessons for the teachers.
Right.
It means being a teacher still.
Leading by
Example.
Examples, yeah. So I think it's just not about the leader instructing teachers and administrating things in the correct manner, but I think they also have to get involved in the teaching and support the teachers in whatever ways they need to. So we are looking at the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. So it's the same. Think of it as like the classroom as well. The teacher who doesn't know the students' names or about them, knowing their learners within 4 months, those students don't have a positive relationship with that teacher, right? Yeah. Same with the Guru Besar and the teachers. If the Guru Besar doesn't know what's happening in the classrooms, the teachers can't really understand what the Guru Besar is saying, because the Guru Besar doesn't know their context in their classroom. So it's easy for the Guru Besar to know their teachers as well.
But it has always been an issue of time, and there's so many different aspects of administration that they have to juggle with.
That's right. It becomes administration rather than instruction.
Right. So I think it is important for them to, focus and strike that balance between looking into quality teaching as well as quality administration.
Yeah. So time as well. It takes 5 minutes to do a walk around the school in the morning, say hi to the teachers, have a quick few words with the students. We've seen examples of the Guru Besar standing outside the school in welcoming all of the children as they come in. It's a very simple thing to do, but it's high impact, and that's visible leadership, and it really does make a difference in the school culture.
Right. Okay. So I think the teachers have to really, remember all the students' name,
Yeah.
as well as getting the Guru Basas to, know all the teachers and what's really happening in the classrooms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, now many new teachers struggle with classroom management. Why do you think this is often underemphasized in training or perhaps in the real world of teaching?
Yeah, it's I think classroom management is the number one biggest impact skill that any teacher can have, because if you can't nail your classroom management, then you're going to spend your whole year fighting fires, like putting out making sure the disruptive children are sitting there, making sure that child's not walking around tapping on there, making sure. So I think it's the reason why teachers struggle with it is because classrooms, especially primary classrooms by their very nature, are chaotic. These are kids, they're children. I mean, I have 2 children myself and they're chaotic. Having 35 children from other people in my class, of course it's going to be chaotic. So that, I think it can be overwhelming actually for a new teacher when they realize the realities of going into a class with a high energy bunch of kids. After break, they've just drunk Milo and eaten sugar and they're on a sugar high and they're running around. It is overwhelming and very, very noisy. And then particularly adding onto that, if that school doesn't have a strong classroom management culture, whereby the teachers are not supported from centralized systems of classroom management, for example, reward systems or good behavior systems. When the best schools I've seen with children who are I'm not saying quiet, but who know the routines, they're the ones that the routines are, you see evidence of those routines in every class in that school, meaning there's been some kind of centralized training or thinking within that school on how we do classroom management in this school. So I think it's often underemphasized in training because it's overdone maybe in teacher training, Colin. I mean, like we have in your curriculum, you have lots of classroom management stuff, right?
But Gary, you must understand, sometimes teachers, we lecturers, sometimes we are seated at the back and the teachers tend to over control the class.
Yeah, then you take away the spirit of the class as well.
True. So what's one practical skill every new teachers must have that you think is vital?
So what I always tell new teachers, and in fact experienced teachers as well, is if you invest 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the beginning of the term getting to know your learners and setting routines, positive routines in the classroom, you'll be 3 weeks behind the curriculum, but you'll catch up and more by the end, because you would have otherwise wasted 3 weeks trying to remember people's names, getting them to do routines and stuff. So invest your time at the beginning. Maybe it's going to be repetitious for the children, but they'll learn the routines. What I mean by routines are, when we come into this class, we sit down quietly, we take out our books and we get our pens, and then we start speaking in English to our partner while we're waiting for the teacher. When the teacher writes the objectives on the board, we write that in our exercise book and we write the date at the top. Then we're ready to learn. Just simple things like that. And then that kind of triggers in their minds, we're ready to learn there. So if you invest in those things at the beginning, you will reap the dividends throughout the year.
Right. So we are actually looking at classroom rules. We establish classroom rules, get them to understand that and get them to actually repeat and do it every day. So I guess the students will get into that routine. Yeah,
it has to be the routine. I mean, you think about personally how many adults are on like a weight loss journey, right? So what's the most effective way of losing weight? It's not, obviously it's eating less and exercising, but it's giving yourself the routine and the system to repeatedly and consistently do it. Don't put sugar in your house, okay? If you put sugar in your house, you're going to eat it. So it's those routines, the habits that you build over time that gives you the desired result. And it's the same here. Kids are humans as well. We're habit machines. That's exactly what we are. We are all creatures of habit. I'm sure we've heard that saying before.
So it's just establishing the routines and also being consistent
Yes,
about it. Yeah?
definitely, 100%.
Okay, so that's very practical, and I think especially useful for early career teachers. Okay, let's move on to our next question. If you could redefine what a classroom ready looks like in one sentence, what would it be, Gary?
Classroom ready teacher, one sentence would be, one sentence, that's challenging. It's going to be someone with the adaptability and resilience and mindset to be able to respond to the children in their class at any given moment.
Right.
So we have to remember that there is no ultimate teacher. It's even teachers who have been teaching for 30 years are still learning how to better do their job, because it's an art as well. You can't learn to be a good teacher from a textbook. An example from my kids' football training. My kids, they go to football training, they get coached by ex-professional football players.
Right.
So you would think, wow, these ex-professionals, they must be really good at coaching. But they're not. They're really good at playing football, but they're not really good at coaching because they don't know how to teach, because nobody taught them how to teach. So these guys may be high skill in what they do, but translating that skill into lessons and learning for the kids is a weakness of theirs. Something that they can do. So classroom ready teachers, you might know the content like the back of your hand, but can you get the kids to learn it is the question. And that, can you get the kids to learn it and know that they have learnt it, is something that we get better at and improve at over the course of a career, and we still never perfect it.
Yeah, but there's always an assumption that anyone can teach. What do you
That's
think about
completely wrong. I think that teaching, to be a teacher, you have to be patient, number one, but you have to be able to break down concepts into digestible chunks that people can actually learn. But then more than that, you have to know, did they learn it, and what's my evidence for them learning it?
Yeah.
Not anyone can do that.
Check and balance
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah.
Exactly, not anyone can do it. We see it, like you see it with your own eyes all throughout the world when you have people who are poor at communicating, for example. They're trying to communicate something, aka teach something to someone else, and they end up getting frustrated because the other person doesn't get it. Whose fault is it? The person speaking or the person listening?
Yeah.
It's the person speaking. So can anyone teach? Can these angry CEOs who are like high skill in their CEOs and their domain experts and get paid lots of money, can they teach? Not anyone can teach.
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of skills,
Definitely.
attitude, and also knowledge
Yeah.
to be departed to the students,
And you
as
have
well
to,
as the teachers.
You have to care about the students first
Yeah,
and foremost as well. If you
true.
don't care about the students, then you don't care about what they're learning, then how can you possibly teach them?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So that's a great way of redefining the readiness of a teacher as what the teachers need: the ability to respond, adapt, and grow. These are some of the essential skills. Right, Gary, one last question. Could you please sort of like reflect upon the PISA and the team's results? And do you think whatever that is being projected from those analysis reflect effective teaching, or is there any effective teaching does really take place in the location that they are doing the research?
Well, I mean, I think there has to be a correlation between effective teaching, but let's define it a bit more clearly. I think Malaysian teachers are very effective at teaching.
Okay.
But are they monitoring what they're teaching? Is it actually being learnt? That's the question. So I think Malaysian teachers are very skilled at understanding the curriculum, how to deliver it, but all teachers around the world always need to work on their ability to assess what's actually been learnt. So that's the disconnect here. So I feel like the TIMSS and PISA results are a reflection of that.
Okay.
We let the curriculum dictate what's happening in the classroom rather than the student's response to the curriculum. So we know from learning science, from HATI, visible learning, that one of the strongest indicators of effective learning in a classroom is the response to intervention. So meaning, how much does the teacher take in the feedback from the learners of what they've learned and then adapt their teaching from there to make sure that the children are learning, rather than just focusing on what the curriculum dictates and the curriculum pacing.
Right. I think that's more of a practical idea, getting the students to respond and getting to know whether they did learn anything out of that lesson on that particular day.
Yeah, I'll
So
give you
that
a very simple takeaway for the all teachers to use. I think there's a misconception with the concept of the exit ticket. I'm sure teachers have heard about the exit ticket. The exit ticket is where at the end of the lesson you get the children to demonstrate their learning. Maybe they write it on a mini whiteboard or a piece of paper. The teacher asks questions. And I think teachers believe that they have to collect all of this in, put it on a nice Excel, like understand where all the children are on their objectives, and you know, if you've got one objective, are they red, orange or green? And you know, that's not what you need to do. What you need to do, and we learnt this from Dylan William, who is a very well-known educationist from Wales. He came over to Malaysia and he gave a talk, and he said the most effective way of doing exit tickets is you collect all this information and then you throw it in the bin straight away. You've processed it already. Don't overthink it. Don't put it in Excels. Don't do anything. Just, you've got the information already. Okay, these kids didn't understand that they missed the verb to be. These kids didn't pluralize that. Okay, now I know. Tomorrow in my lesson, I'm going to redo that part, just as my set induction. That's it. That's all you need to do.
So there is a continuity between the previous lesson and the next
100%.
lesson.
That is assessment for learning, linking what happened in that lesson to the following lesson. And that's, I think, the thing that Malaysian teachers struggle with. They overcomplicate things. They have these wonderful spreadsheets, but it's not sustainable.
All right.
Just like the best exit tickets are the ones you can throw in the bin. Just remember that. I mean, you don't have to throw the whiteboards in the bin, obviously. But
so I think Teams and PISA seems to be a great way to evaluate how the system is reacting to the present preparation of teachers who are going to be leading the entire education system, right? Okay, now let's take a question from the audience. There is a question regarding evaluation.
okay.
So in another word, it's the PBD. So how would you gauge PBD's effectiveness in classes, Gary?
I think it's been challenging for teachers, honestly. It was, I like many of the things that come centrally, they're excellent ideas to pivot into classroom-based assessment from the UPSR, for example, but they tend to fail on the implementation side. 1 minute the teachers are doing UPSR and building the children towards passing this summative test, and the very next month, in the beginning of the next academic year, they're told they're not doing that anymore. Now you're doing classroom assessment, but there's not any support or granddaddying in. So, you know, if you want to do that such a radical change, you should probably plan for it a bit more and do the training 2 or 3 years before you're actually going to make that change, and then make the change so that everybody's fully prepared. Because what currently happens is you have a very wide range of interpretation of the levels of mastery of each children, and there's very little standardization across the schools. So my subjective opinion of this child being TP1 or TP2, another teacher could look at that child and think they're TP3. And so this is confusing. One of my colleagues, Conrad, his son, he can't speak BM very well at all, but he's fluent in English.
Okay.
And his English teacher gave him TP3, I think. But his BM teacher gave him TP6. And Conrad questioned the teacher, how did you come up with the grades on this? And they didn't know how to answer the question.
Right.
So my point is, like, the reason for this is, I mean, it could be complex as well. There's pressure to have only a certain number of children in TP1, TP2 from various angles. But it could also be that the teacher doesn't know how to interpret those mastery indicators for all of their students. Or it could be the teacher doesn't know the students. At the end of the year when they're doing the TPs, who was that child again? Or I just guess.
Right. That's
Okay.
going back to our idea from
Exactly.
the beginning.
Yeah.
Getting to know your students first.
Exactly. So it's complicated. I think good practice would have different teachers. Well, obviously, lots of training in how to, what does TP1 in listening look like in your class? So until all of the English teachers can agree on what TP1 in listening skill, whatever it is, looks like, how can you effectively assess that in the classroom when one teacher is giving TP4, one's giving TP1? That's random. So that needs to change. First, you need some kind of standardization within the school and the interpretation of what these learning outcomes are.
I think beyond standardization, I think they need to be trained
Yeah.
and be clear of what does TP, all those TPs,
Exactly mean,
sort of like, in a clear picture,
Yeah.
so that everybody is on the same page.
It's like in universities, you have moderation sessions, right?
Yeah.
So when you get the university students to write an essay and everyone's writing the same essay, then you all mark, and then you get together as a bunch of teachers and you moderate each other's marking.
Yeah.
And you say, I think you've marked too high there, this should be this, what do you think about that? And you have a conversation.
Yeah.
So that normalization needs to happen within schools as well. Like, what does TP3 on speaking about your family in English look like?
Right.
And what does it not look like?
Okay.
And until teachers have that normalization and shared idea, it's kind of random on the marking from PBD.
Right. Okay. So I think there's lots more to debate on.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think Mr. Gary has shared a lot of insights about what exactly it takes to be a teacher ready classroom, and why is it not so simple as what we think it is. Now with that, I wish to thank Mr. Gary Hustler for such an insightful and thought-provoking session. From the audience perspective, I believe we now have a clearer and deeper understanding of what it truly means to be classroom-ready teachers, not a final destination, but as an ongoing journey of growth and adaptation. Your perspective have encouraged us to rethink key aspects of education, including the gap between teaching and learning, the importance of understanding our learners, and the need for greater teacher agency within diverse classroom contexts. Indeed, your sharing has not only broadened our perspective, but also inspired us, yes, Gary, to reflect more deeply on our own practices as educators. Once again, thank you, Mr. Gary Hustler, for your time and valuable insights. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Gary.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, ladies and gentlemen, with a heavy heart, I must inform you that we have come to the end of the session. Personally, I have gained so much from today's discussion, particularly in understanding that being a classroom-ready teacher is far more complex than it seems. I hope this session has just been as meaningful and enriching for all of you. Should you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comment box and we will attend to it when the time permits. Once again, on behalf of Institute of Teacher Education International Languages Campus, IPG-KBA, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to Mr. Gary Hustler for his time and contribution today. Our heartfelt thanks also goes to our team, Dr. Munira, Ms. Hidayah, our technical team, Mr. Satya, Mr. Daini, Mr. Fazi and Mr. Azri for ensuring the most smooth running session and not forgetting all of our viewers. Thank you so much.